Today, I would like to move on to the first practical part with you. And for this practical part, I am using Gig, Performer and Bandhelper. Then I want to show you how to handle program changes. How I, for instance, switch programs using MSB, LSB and the PC. MSB is the most significant byte and LSB is the least significant byte. It's about being able to select a band with it, with the MSB and with the LSB sub-bank. The problem is that each keyboard can accept different values. By default, it is always or very often 0 for the MSB and 32 for the LSB. And then comes the program number. But if I have a lot of programs in Midi, more than 127, because we learned in the first video how to send values from 0 to 127 or 1 to 128, then I have to jump back and forth. That means there are multiple MSB and LSB values. We will go into examples again. With the Yamaha MODX, for example, this works very well. You can very well demonstrate how to jump into the live sets there. We will do that again. If you have specific devices where you want to see an example, please let me know. If I have the devices, I will certainly do it. You know my collection. Yamaha MODX, Roland Fantom, Korg, Kronos, the Nautilus and the Montage are the same, the Phantom 07. I can also offer you the Nord stage at the moment. And everything else. I would then try to borrow and manage to get anything else. But now let's first go to the computer and I'll show you how it works with Gig Performer. You might already be able to apply that to your devices. And if not, we'll continue in the next videos. We are now here at the computer. Here on the left side, you see Gig Performer with my set list. And on the right side, you now see Bandhelper. That's what I've done now, because it's easier with the camera work and you have both images side by side. And I can also move them together if necessary so you can see it a bit better. As I said, if you have specific examples with your keyboard, let me know and we'll figure it out somehow. And I'll at least show you how and where to find the data. I have now completed 3 songs, for example here, 1001 Nights. And if I click here now, which I usually do on my iPad, you saw that it jumps to 1001 Nights on the left. And if I click on 99 Luftballons, it jumps to 99 Luftballons. And if I click on Aber bitte mit Sahne, it jumps there. You can see here in the band on this page, it might seem a bit confusing at first glance that you can enter a lot of things here. And here in this first field, you can see that I have the Phantom, Gig Performer and the Kronos Choir. This is because I played the Kronos Choir for a very, very long time and controlled the program changes with the band for the set list. Here, for example, I select the set list and the program slot for the Kronos. And for Gig Performer, I select this with an MSB 0, LSB 2 and program change 25. Now, the nice thing about Gig Performer is that it allows you to specify, I'll show you quickly, which song responds to which program change and which MSB and LSB. That's a good thing because Gig Performer is very flexible. Here I can shuffle the set list around as I like in the rack spaces. If you know my other videos, you've seen that, but the songs don't have a fixed place. And that's why it makes sense for me to assign a fixed value to the songs. I have to be careful not to duplicate it, but then I can shuffle them through the set list and call them up as I like. If I were to orient myself by position 14 here, then the song would be perhaps in a different set list with another band or at a completely different spot in another performance. And there, it doesn't make much sense. Exactly, and now I have essentially connected the band MIDI with my Gig Performer and can simply switch here. And you can see here, for example, that I have 2 variations which I can also switch. With the Yamaha MODX, for example, I made a video about it, which you can watch. I've linked it. There you can see how I switch scenes from the Gig Performer, for example. So you have various options here to send program changes from support programs like Band, Songbook Pro and OnSong, whatever they're called, to the keyboards or the software. But you can also send back from your software host to your setlist program and to the keyboard. You can also send from the keyboard just as well. So these program changes, you can send them anywhere. And now I would just check if I still have I'm not so sure about this, a global mini monitor. Yes, that's the global mini monitor. And now I click on it once. And now you see a few things being sent here. This is now because several things are being sent here, namely the CC0, which is the bank select command, the CC32, which is the LSB command and the program change. Once on channel 15 and once on channel 16. Channel 15 is the Kronos in this case. It sends the signal over here because Gig Performer only recognizes the Bandhelper as a whole. However, I have set Bandhelper to only respond to channel 16. And that brings us to the next point, MIDI channels. I think we'll make a separate video about that. MIDI channels are super, super important because each device can initially send on 16 MIDI channels. and you have to see what the other side does with it. The other side can receive on all 16 channels. You can often fix certain things to specific channels. That means, for example, that it only responds to channel 16. So it can send as much as it wants, but it always only responds to this stuff here. You can also see that I have 0 and 2 here. That's why it's not a problem what I've done there. So you've now seen that you can, for example, switch sounds. If you have specific examples, I repeat, feel free to write them in the comments. Then I'll try to recreate them and show you step by step what you need to set up. And what I think I didn't quite say correctly earlier is that CC0 is always the MSB and CC32 is the LSB. And the values that need to be entered for them, they are different. So this is basically a standard that is very, very often used with these 0 and 32.